The place where the first seeds of writing, astronomy, laws and even civilization were sown. Mesopotamia. Literally between rivers. The region between the Eyuprates and their magic, which has been flowing for tens of thousands of years, had very favorable conditions, especially for agriculture. It was between these two cities that the first known state in history was founded. The Sumerians. I will first describe the origins of the Sumerians and their founding adventure, then their contribution to civilization and finally their influence on today's traditions. The Sumerians were not indigenous people of Mesopotamia. They came to the region later. The period before their arrival is called the Ubaid period. In 6000 BC, the first villages were built in the region by these masterminds. It is known that it was founded and agriculture was practiced. The population started to increase over time in the region, which had favorable conditions for agriculture. With the increase in population, the city of Eridu, the first urban settlement in the region, was established. Both population growth and urbanization, it also necessitated some activities outside of it. Traders, weavers, miners and artisans emerged alongside farmers. In 3500 BC, a non-Samian community arrived in Mesopotamia and made the region the cradle of civilization. These people were the Sumerians. There is no certainty about their origins. But most scholars believe they came from the north, from Central Asia or the Caucasus. Some studies increase the possibility that the Sumerians may have originated from Central Asia. One of the most important indicators used to determine which race a community belongs to is the language they speak. When we look at the Sumerian language, it is among the agglutinative or contiguous languages. From this point of view, it is thought that the Sumerians belonged to the Ural-Altaic will. Based on this information, some researchers have suggested that the Sumerians may have been Turks. The first scientist to study the similarities between Sumerian and Turkish was the German researcher Hone. In his study, he found that between 300 and 350 words are similar between Turkish and Sumerian. At different times, different researchers have tried to match the Sumerian language with different languages, but the origins of the Sumerians remain a mystery to this day. The Sumerians who came to Mesopotamia started to organize themselves into city-states over time. The real mother in Mesopotamia, the first city-state, was arguably the largest city in the world at the time. Between 40,000 and 80,000 people are thought to have lived in the city within its 6 kilometers of defensive walls in 2800 BC. It was also a lively trading city between other cities and regions. Apart from Uruk, there were cities like Eridu, Ur, Dnieper, Lagash, Kish. These cities had some things in common according to the city plans. The city was surrounded by defensive walls. Outside the city were villages. In the center of each city was a magnificent temple. These temples were located on top of giant structures called ziggurats. Built between 2 and 7 stories high, they were also centers of religion, education, and trade. At the top was the temple. Only high priests could enter here. The Sumerians were a very religious society. They believed that every action, every object had a god. Therefore, their belief system was polytheistic. The Sumerians had quite elaborate mythologies around this polytheistic belief system. Sumerian gods were superhuman and immortal. These gods were a group of living creatures, invisible to mortals, who ruled and controlled the universe according to well-organized plans and pre-written laws. The Sumerians referred to these gods by the word Dingar. Sumerian gods, they eat and drink just like humans. They could marry and have children. Each of the gods in Antipon was the guardian of one of the Mesopotamian cities with their families. These Sumerian gods were the spokespersons of their cities, serving as they communicated with the king and the city's leading priests on important matters. The Sumerian gods, who developed the city, they protected more commercially, militarily and economically, and made the people living there happier, rose in a hierarchical structure. The gods of important cities were thus held in high esteem throughout the state. Sumerian city-states were often at war with each other. Although they shared a common language and culture, different dynasties, and they fought continuous wars that resulted in a series of conflicts. According to historical records, the first of these wars took place around 2450 BC between the cities of Lagash and Umma over a border dispute. King En-Nato of Lagash won this war to immortalize his victory. He built the chilling limestone site of the vultures, depicting birds feasting on the flesh of their defeated enemies. The Sumerians invented the writing system, enabling the recording of information. The taxes and redistribution of the products brought to the ziggurats had to be recorded. For this purpose, the scribes used accounts made of clay, stone, and other materials from the marks on the calculating stones. A highly sophisticated written language gradually emerged. This system, called cuneiform, consisted of several hundred characters in which words and syllables were written with pointed reeds on wet gill tablets. These tablets were then baked and left in the sun to dry. The Sumerians first developed cuneiform for everyday tasks such as keeping accounts and recording commercial transactions. But over time, it evolved into a writing system used in every field from poetry to history, from law to literature. Because writing could be translated into many languages, it was used by different cultures over the following millennia. With the invention of writing, the Sumerians founded the first known school system in history. These schools were called tablet houses. And they were usually located on the middle floors. The Sumerian school initially emerged as a vocational school. It was established to train scribes to meet the economic and administrative needs of the temple and palace. As long as Sumerian schools have existed, this main purpose has always continued. However, over time, with the expansion and development of education and the expansion of programs, schools became centers of culture and science. These schools taught the science of God, plant science, animal science, mineral science, geography, mathematics, grammar, and linguistics as they were known at the time. Over time, scientists who contributed to this knowledge grew up and discovered new knowledge. Initially attached to the temple, the Sumerian school gradually became an institution independent of religion. And its educational program also acquired a very worthy character. Education in these schools was not compulsory. Also, only male students could study. Girls were normally not sent to school, but were kept busy with housework or taught at home by a teacher. The majority of the students were from wealthy families. This was because the poor could not afford the money and time this school required. Because the salaries of the teachers were paid by the students, the Sumerians established the first written rules of law to perpetuate power and authority. By the king of Lagash, who came to power in 2375 BC, laws were created. These laws regulated private property, family law, and the protection of orphans and the weak. Justice was a very important issue for the Sumerians. The symbol of justice was the sun. Just as the sun illuminates the darkness, justice was the symbol of injustice. Would be eliminated. Their laws also aimed to break the influence of the clergy on society. In addition, marriage, divorce, private property and trade were put in writing. When these laws are analyzed, it is seen that the ransom and body system stands out. Death penalties were rarely imposed. Another important law in the Sumerian civilization is their laws. With these laws, it is possible to falsely accuse someone of a crime. Criminalization is regulated in the areas of damaging someone else's land, runaway slaves and injuries. Most of these laws are related to criminal and family law. Capital punishment was prescribed for some crimes such as murder and theft. For other offenses, fines were imposed. The unearthed tablets show that Sumer had a widespread court system and competent judges in the 3000 BC. The Sumerian judicial system consisted of a panel of accusing judges, a scribe and a defense counsel. This system shows that the origins of today's judicial system date back to the Sumerians. The units we use today to measure time, a significant part of it is Sumerian. The Sumerian number system is the 60th system. The measurement of time, where a minute equals 60 seconds and an hour equals 60 minutes, also originated with them. They invented the 4 operations. Multiplication and division table, they created it. They calculated the area of a circle. They prepared a calendar based on the lunar year for the first time. They invented the sundial and calculated a month as 30 days and a year as 360 days. The Sumerians, who were very interested in astronomy, also discovered the 12 signs at the end of these studies. The origin of the eagle symbol, which has been used as a symbol of power by empires such as the Romans and Seljuks and today by the United States, dates back to the Sumerians. According to the Sumerians, the positions of the sun in the morning, noon and evening had different gods and represented in different ways. The morning sun was represented by the eagle, as it signified the rising and ascension. The Sumerians, who were a religious society, wanted to please their gods and make a request. They would sacrifice an animal to get rid of illnesses or to make a vow for something. They made sure that this animal was healthy and not crippled or sick. After the sacrifice in the temples, certain parts of the animal were offered to the god while the other parts were distributed. The marriage of the Sumerian shepherd god Tam-Banana and Persian, goddess of fertility and the moon, on March 21 was regularly celebrated every year as a sacred marriage. This sacred marriage represented the end of winter and the fertility of the land. In this marriage ritual, the fire representing the sun was also jumped over. Nevras, which is celebrated in different cultures today, is rooted in this sacred marriage. In addition, events such as the Christian Easter, Hitareles, or the fall of the Semra are also rooted in this sacred marriage. The sacred marriage of the Tam-Banana and the believer is also reflected in the marriage traditions of today's Middle East and Anatolia. Inanna is bathed before the sacred marriage. The tradition of the bridal bath. She talks to her mother and gets advice from her. She watches the gifts arrive through the door. Dowry tradition. The bride's room is prepared. The dowry is shown to the visitors. After all the preparations, the full banana can enter. This tradition still continues in various forms. The tradition of the Christmas tree also dates back to the Sumerians. The god Tammuz falls into a deep sleep on December 21. And wakes up on December 25. This burning is celebrated on December 25. In this celebration, the Sumerians decorate trees called Christmas trees. These ornaments symbolize all kinds of fruit and abundance. The tree itself is a banana. In addition to these, traditions such as marriage rings and evil eye beads were first seen in Sumerian society. As can be seen, Sumerians have had an impact on many societies from the past to the present. They built a civilization that had a significant impact. It is impossible to summarize their impact on humanity in one video. Therefore, you can do a more detailed research on the Sumerians by reading the sources in the explanation section of the video.